And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Greetings, pilots. I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska aviation weather outlook. That'll be for Monday and on Tuesday. Let's take a look at how things are going to be shaping up. We're going to have an area of low pressure out here toward the central western Bering. Another front pushing onshore in through the southwest coast and west central areas. That'll be allowing more precipitation in the form of snow to spread inland. We have widespread IFR conditions along and north of the Yukon River and through the central interior and the south slopes of the Brooks Range, and then extending out across Norton Sound, areas of the Seward Peninsula, and all throughout the southwest coast, and then across the Alaska Peninsula. We have a front then that has a triple point with a new low taking shape early Monday just east of the Alaska Peninsula, southwest of Kodiak Island. And by the time we get into Monday afternoon, we'll see that low taking shape along the east side of Kodiak Island in the western Gulf. Meanwhile, high pressure remains anchored over northwest Canada, keeping the Panhandle relatively quiet with VFR conditions expected throughout the day on Monday. We find, though, to the west that the IFR area expands along this frontal boundary as it pushes inland, and we expect widespread areas of snow or snow showers. I would imagine there'll be some additional advisories or warnings associated with this as it works its way further eastward. And then again in the western Gulf, lower Cook Inlet, areas around the southern Kenai, Kodiak Island, all experiencing IFR conditions. By the time we get into Tuesday morning, we continue to see that moisture spreading farther to the north and east across the interior and down along the Alaska Range, much of the northern western Gulf coast. Still areas of the Panhandle holding on to VFR conditions early Tuesday, but we have a secondary low, another low coming up out of the North Pacific, a little smaller, more compact, that's going to kind of join up with the low that's sitting here off the Kenai. And the two of those, this one coming up from the southwest on Tuesday afternoon, is going to begin to fling more moisture in through the Panhandle, another round of snow and rain as we get into Tuesday night and Wednesday. We will find the area of IFR conditions shrinking across much of the mainland as we go through Tuesday afternoon and evening, though the greatest threat for IFR conditions continuing will be along the spine of the Brooks Range, back out toward the northern Bering around St. Lawrence Island. So Anaktuvuk Pass on Monday, we'll see MVFR conditions, as will Adigan Pass. As you go fly south of those areas there, north side of the Yukon River, the south slopes of the Brooks Range will tend to encounter IFR conditions. Lake Clark and Merrill will see MVFR conditions become IFR with that frontal system pushing in from the south and west. Same thing, Rainy Pass, MVFR becoming IFR on Monday. Windy Pass will try to hold on to VFR conditions, at least during the daylight hours on Monday. Can't rule out it could become MVFR by, say, mid to late afternoon. But further east, Isabel and Mentasta passes along the eastern portion of the Alaska Range will remain VFR on Monday. Further south across the Copper River Basin, VFR conditions will hold there at Tanita, as will most of the time around Portage Pass. Maybe by as we get into the afternoon and certainly early evening, we do expect MVFR conditions to be prevalent, pushing up into Prince William Sound and perhaps the eastern half there of Portage Pass. And then for Monday, again, much of the Panhandle enjoying VFR conditions in the far north at Chilkoot and White Passes. We expect VFR conditions there on Monday. The surface freezing line Monday morning will extend out well up into the central Bering Sea up to about St. Matthew along the southwest coast there of Bristol Bay, back out along north of Kodiak Island to the east side of the Kenai, and then dipping across the southward across the eastern Gulf to Haida Gwaii. There is a little bump in the freezing levels aloft, 2,000 and 4,000 feet, associated with the frontal system. It'll be in an arc like this and then pushing northeastward as we go through Monday afternoon and night. So with this influx of moisture coming in off the Bering and being drawn out ahead of from the North Pacific, we expect widespread potential for moderate icing across areas of much of the interior here through the Alaska Range, the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, into the western portion of the Gulf. where the air is warmest, above 5,000 feet here toward Kodiak Island, the lower Gulf, as we get up toward Cook Inlet. Southwest interior, above 3,000 feet, because we have those precipitation-producing clouds creating the lower ceilings and visibilities. And then up here through the Yukon Valley, where the air mass is colder, we expect icing there above 1,000 feet or so. Looking at the jet stream level, we have a weak ridge out here over the Gulf into the southeast mainland. Little jet core up to 140 knots just south of the eastern and central Aleutians, bringing it down to 9,000 feet or 700 millibars. We see the low circulation here back toward the western Bering. Broad area of winds that are anywhere from southwest to west, northwest, along and just south of the Aleutian chain, with areas of winds of 50 to near 60 knots there, pushing into the lower Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, and then back just off to the south of the western and central Aleutians. As we bring that down further to 3,000 feet, we do find some stronger winds along the Arctic coast, especially between Utqiagvik and Point Lay, upwards of 45 knots. And then we have areas of wind pushing into the southwest coast, 35 to 40 knots, and along the Aleutian chain, 35 to 40 knot winds as well. So as a result, the greatest threat for any moderate turbulence, there may be a little pocket up there around Wainwright down to Point Lay, surface to 3,000 feet. And then along the Alaska Range, get up into higher elevations, surface to 10,000 feet along the ridge lines. And then as we trail out along and west of the Alaska Range into the Alaska Peninsula, we would expect turbulence there along any of the ridge lines and areas, surface to 4,000 feet. And then a broad area of moderate turbulence across the Aleutians, extending back all the way toward the western Aleutians, surface to 3,000 feet.